timetable 3 to 6 weeks. But get this, Matt LaFleur hasn't even completely ruled him out for this week yet.
I couldn't give you a percentage, but if he gets cleared, we'll give him every opportunity like we always will. And, I know he's doing everything in his power. I know he's spending a lot of time trying to get back as soon as possible, but certainly we're not going to put him in a position where if he can't protect himself, that he'd go out there. If Jordan's not cleared, then we'll start Malik and Sean will be the backup.
Do we officially know it's an MCL sprain?
No.
It's not a tear, it's a sprain, so it'll be sore. Yeah, my take is
a sprain is a tear. It's just a smaller tear.
Risky to put the guy you just signed to $1 billion contract, just trot him out there with an MCL sprain.
Well, he played on a Friday, so 2 extra days, right? So it will be sore. First of all, this is really encouraging that he can miss 1 game.
Well,
they're not going to win with...
Is this gamesmanship from LaFleur?
No, I don't think it is. Remember, young athletes heal faster than old athletes. And Green Bay does things right. I mean, most of these young athletes get hurt. We say 8 weeks, they're back in 5 or 6. So, I mean, to me, this is incredibly encouraging. Whether maybe it is gamesmanship, but what it tells me is he's going to play not this week, then next week at minimum. And that's fine.
You remember last year, Trevor Lawrence had an injury, like a high ankle sprain, and they had a Thursday night game, and everybody said, he's not playing. So I went and bet against them, right, the Saints. And Trevor Lawrence, lo and behold, plays and is fine.
I remember that.
So you could be on to something with this.
Now, you could argue Trevor Lawrence playing exacerbated all the injuries, and he kept getting more hurt.
Yeah.
So that's probably what Green Bay's weighing now. Willis is not beating Indianapolis. Indy's a good team.
So Indy's now favored by 3.5 on the road. I think you just got to take the points with the Packers just in case Love shows up, right?
Or do you take the Colts in a blowout because this is all gamesmanship? I mean, it's probably a stay-away game.
Just remember, the Colts receivers were winning deep indoors in week 1. Yeah. Now you go outdoors in Green Bay. Jair Alexander's not bad. That's got to be Packers or pass for me.
Okay, well, he's talking about gambling now. I want to talk real things. Okay, so I'm not going to go in too deep about whether or not how injured Jordan Love is or not. I love how people always try to act like sprains aren't that big deal, especially when someone who's never actually had sprains, as I have, and they are. It's a tear, but it's just not as severe of a tear of when we say, oh, he tore his MCL, ACL, whatever it may be. And, oh, he's just sore. Yes, but depending on the grade of it, it's like severe soreness. It feels like, literally pins going into your knee. Like, it's not just like, oh, it's a little sore. Like I went kind of hard on the bench press and I just feel a little sore. It's not what it is. So let's not downplay. That's why people will go out with like a knee sprain or whatever the sprain, however we classify it, for the type of injury, and they're out for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's just not that simple. Not to mention, once your knee is compromised, or your really kind of any body part like that, there is the risk of injuring it far further, because your muscles now, because he's not walking and moving around like he normally would be, your muscles begin to atrophy like that, right? I mean, anyone who's ever been injured, who's been on bed rest or had surgery or in a cast or whatever, it's within a few days. It's like unbelievable how you start to kind of lose that strength. And once you lose that strength and some of that muscle mass, that now really compromises the knee, which is what you can make the argument is what potentially just kind of set Trevor Lawrence up for failure. And again, I'm not saying all this is happening to Jordan Love. You just don't know, because one of the benefits of it being a sprain versus a tear is that when you are in the weight room and when you are kind of doing rehab type stuff, you'll have the full range of motion. You might not have the full range of motion just because of a pain threshold when you're out and about, and like, let's say he was gonna come down to a squat to like tie his shoes or something, he probably wouldn't do that. But in the weight room, and when he's doing physical therapy, massage, whatever, he will have full range of motion, most likely. Like, he will probably be riding the bike. A lot of times what you do is you bring the seat real low, so when you are, like, let's say these are your feet and you're riding the bike, like, you can now go real high up and down, whereas if you had the tear, you would have your seat really high up, and you would just kind of start like this, and then you go like this. So that is why, especially a sprain, you can get there faster to recovery, because you can do more. But it's hard to gauge. We have no idea how severe it is. Clearly, it's not super severe where they're questioning it, but I can't tell if Matt LaFleur is just trying to be like, kind of play these games. Is it going to be Love? Is it going to be Willis? I don't know, so who really knows? But I kind of wanted to take this opportunity more to talk about the Packers because it's kind of crazy. I mean, my God, we were talking about Packers 24/7, all this great media attention, and Love goes down and like no one's talking about it. I mean, honestly, not a lot of people talked about the Eagles or the Packers game. I don't understand how that game got lost. Right, Thursday happened and everybody was talking about on Friday the Ravens and the Ravens and the Chiefs. And then Friday happened, a great game, a wild game, an exciting game, a tragic game for Jordan Love and the Packers. And then Monday came around and no one talked about it. They're talking about, Puka Nacua being injured, the Lions, the Rams, talking about, still talking about the Chiefs and the Ravens, talking about like every other team but the Eagles and the Packers. Like I could not find a lot of Packers content and Eagles content either, really. Honestly, the only Eagles clip that I saw was from First Things First. And I watched all of NFL Live, and they never covered the Packers-Eagles game. Like, I don't understand. I know it was on Friday, but there was like no covering it. They covered the Cowboys and the Browns game in 4 different segments in their 2-hour show. 4 different times. Nothing about the Eagles. They mentioned the Eagles and the Packers, like mentioned it, but like no actual, it was just more of like an acknowledgement that they played, right? But like nothing else beyond that. I think he mentioned Saquon Barkley's big game. I think he just said, oh, Saquon played great. And like, that was it. Like no actual other analysis. And so that like kind of drives me crazy. Like where's the Packers content? Are we acting like the Packers don't matter? Or is it just like, is this kind of how the media deals with it? When someone goes down, they know, okay, this content, the Packers aren't going to be that popular right now or get a lot of clicks, right? Kind of like what happened when the Jets were super popular. Aaron Rodgers goes down and it's like, all right, we're on to the next thing. Got to tell, just got to be the next man up. We got to talk about the next popular team. What's going to get us the clicks? I found it frustrating. If you're a Packers fan, I'm curious if you felt this way or if like I'm missing something, because I genuinely struggle. This is the best I could do, right? It's just like, oh, Jordan Love, is he out? Is he not? What's going on? And it's like, come on, man. I want some better, more concrete Packers information here. But I think the Packers look good. I got to try to find my notes where it is. Where did I put it? Okay, here it is. I think the Packers actually looked really, really good. I think that week 1 game is a really, really tough matchup. And I said that in the beginning, that it's a tough matchup for both the Eagles and the Packers. And I said, if the Eagles lose, because there was a lot more talk around whether or not if the Eagles win or lose, what does it mean? Because they had their whole issues of their collapse last year. So I feel like there was a little bit more attention on the Eagles going into that game. And I said, listen, even if the Eagles lose, the Packers are a top team in the NFL. They're a great team. You're just really looking to see how well do the Eagles play to kind of gauge how good they are. And I think the Eagles are a really good team, and I can say the same thing for the Packers, quite frankly. And listen, that field was a mess. It was. And there's 2 schools of thought. Some people like to say, oh, there's no excuses, blah, 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 blah. And their other school of thought is saying, no, this affects it. And I am absolutely, no, this affects it. I'm not saying it's why they lost. I'm not saying it's why the Eagles won or why injuries took place, but it was a legitimate thing. And you could tell Jordan Love was uncomfortable. The Packers struggled with it. The Eagles struggled with it as well. So it was a struggle, and you have to look and see what type of team can be more resilient in that matter. It's not all just a mental thing. Something what makes someone special, having a more slippery field can affect you more, right? It all depends on the style of game that you're trying to play. A team like the Miami Dolphins would struggle significantly on a slippery field. Or you can make the argument that they could take advantage of the defense on a slippery field because they're so fast. Like it's, you can slice it so many different ways, but it did affect them. It absolutely did. Listen, Jordan Love was not perfect, but he was very comfortable. Very comfortable. And, he got away with a couple of real bad passes, but he looked comfortable. And I think, it's week 1. The Eagles defense, I think, is significantly better than people are going to give it credit for. But he just looked so confident. I think he really continued that confidence from last season, from the last 10 games that everyone just likes to say he only had those 10 good games. I think he continued that trend. I really do. I think this was a tall task for either team to come out here and just ball out. You're in Brazil. There's a lot going on. The field is randomly slippery, right? You're playing on Friday. It's week 1. Like, it's just a lot. We saw teams all around the NFL struggle. Quarterbacks all around the NFL struggle, right? You just did. So it's just like, it depends on who you're a fan of, where you could be like, oh, well, the Eagles gave up 1 million points. And you could be like, oh, well, the Packers gave up 1 million points, right? Like, you can look at it from so many different directions to make it and paint it negative. But I really think when I watched that game, I saw 2 great teams going at it with each other. That's what I saw. And the Packers absolutely could have won that game. They absolutely could have, right? If a couple things bounce their way, boom, they win. But there was, a lot of penalties on both teams, which is frustrating. That seems to be a pretty common theme for week 1 around the NFL. But I just think, he had a few not great decisions. I think the defense came up big. They made Jalen Hurts look uncomfortable at times. And I think the Packers, the penalties kind of forced them out of rhythm at times, right? And it can kind of, it disrupted their flow. And I felt at times it was difficult for Jordan Love to get settled, even though I think he looked confident, which I think is really what I wanted to highlight more than anything, is that even when this game was not flawlessly executed, Jordan Love still looked comfortable, right? Even if he's out of rhythm, he looked comfortable, right? And I think that goes such a long way, because one, when the quarterback starts to actually look uncomfortable, that's when the team really begins to unravel. Think of what Deshaun Watson looked like against the Dallas Cowboys, right? That's an unraveling. That's an uncomfortable quarterback. And I don't mean to throw Caleb Williams under the bus, but Caleb Williams looked uncomfortable for very much of that game. That's an unraveling. Obviously, he's a rookie, but still, to me, those just kind of paint concrete things. Jordan Love looked comfortable even when the game itself was meant to make him feel uncomfortable. And he had some beautiful passes, some beautiful balls, some drop passes that really hurt him, some slips. That's why it's like a little bit harder to kind of gauge. Like, even though we have to say both teams have to deal with it, it's hard to know if some of those passes were caught, if there was not some of those slips. Can Jordan Love get more momentum and really execute that offense more flawlessly? I mean, I believe so. Granted, we can say the same thing about the Eagles as well, right? Like Saquon Barkley slipping on the first play for the Eagles, right? Like, that really now backed them up at the end zone, which then kind of forced Jalen Hurts to try to do too much, and then boom, he throws the interception. So that's why I try to look at these teams both very individually and try to evaluate what did I see individually. And I just don't think that there was a tremendous amount of negatives to take away from the Packers. I don't know how Packers fans feel about that loss, especially because I don't know how they feel about the Eagles. I don't know if they see the Eagles as a top team, if they're kind of carrying on that narrative that they think that the Eagles are more of a bottom team and how they collapsed last season, yada, yada, yada. But the reality is that the Eagles were a play away from winning the Super Bowl in 22. They just were. So they're not some bad scrub team, and I think they upgraded significantly on defense and offense and in the coordinating, with the coaches, and so that really goes a long way. But I loved Matt LaFleur's game plan. I think he put the Packers in a position to succeed. I really do, and that's all I'm really asking for from a coach in week 1. And I think that the defense looks a lot better. They looked lively again. I keep saying this, it's hard to really fully gauge because of the field and because I think the Eagles have a great great offense. I mean, the Eagles have 1 million weapons. AJ Brown, Devontae, Saquon, Jalen Hurts, Goddard. That's a legit offensive arsenal. There's no way to put it. So the Eagles were always going to put up a good amount of points. The Ravens have a really good defense, and yet the Chiefs still made them look silly at times. It's just the way it's going to go. It's just the way it's going to go. And so I think this Colts game is going to be another tough game. I do. We saw how hard the Colts played the Texans. And I think AR is a very unique quarterback that it's going to be very interesting to see how he does against a team like the Packers. There's definitely potential for him to pick them apart because it's kind of similar to a Lamar Jackson facing the NFC, where he's just such a unique quarterback that these teams are not used to facing, that you just don't know what to expect. And it's just a lot harder to game plan against. Not to mention, of course, whether or not Jordan Love is going to play. But if I'm a Packers fan, I'm not panicking. I'm curious to see what Malik Willis would be able to do with Matt LaFleur. one of the biggest things about having such a great top offensive head coach in the NFL is that they can get by with backup quarterbacks. They can make do. They can scrape together some wins. So I wouldn't automatically just be like, oh my God, this season is over. The Packers are done. We had so much high hopes, because I did. I mean, I had them as a top team in the NFL, Super Bowl contender, and then this happens, and it's so frustrating. It was like the final, 6 seconds of the game, right? Final play, whatever it was, second to last play, and you're just like, are you serious right now? Like, why did this have to happen? So I really feel for Packers fans, but I think that the season is not 100% lost. The Bears did not look good at all. I think the Lions, right? Obviously, having the Lions win that game goes a long way for them to kind of get that jump start. If there's a way that they can beat the Colts, then that, if they can steal, if Jordan Love doesn't play and Malik Willis can look competent, and the Packers can steal a couple wins, they're 100% still in this. I think the wild card would, again, especially if Jordan Love goes down, it will feel a lot more realistic, but I believe it's totally possible. I really do. I thought the Browns were maybe going to look a little bit better. It's hard to really gauge who the Cowboys are. Maybe the Vikings come back down to earth. I mean, they beat up on the Panthers. Hard to gauge them. Same thing with the Buccaneers beating the Commanders. I'm curious to see how quickly the Commanders can get things going with Jordon Daniels. So I think the wild card is just wide open for the Packers if they can't secure the division, which I think, again, if Jordan Love is out, I think winning the division is just going to be too tall of a task. So then it's all about stacking wins when you can and getting the wild card. And I think that will still be wide open for Jordan Love and the Packers. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think that the season's kind of over because of Jordan Love? Do you think he's going to be able to bounce back a lot sooner than people imagine? Do you think the Packers can still win the division? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.